Hi everyone, this is Lotus with Art of Sacred Embodiment. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about conditioning and programming, but I wanted to focus on the subject of the language that we use oftentimes and the way that we have been conditioned and trained and programmed to turn things upside down and inside out, to confuse, we could say, the senses and the emotions and the psyche, and to distort the true essence of some actions or words that we speak, the actions connected to that, or even the ways in which we have turned upside down um, the positive, and then they're spoken about in a negative. So one of the first things that I just wanted to start with is, programming is very vast. It's a huge topic, and there's a lot of rabbit holes that we could go down. And recently, myself and a couple other colleagues did a workshop on programming and deprogramming and the ways in which the collective programming, whether that be through family, education, religion, politics, all cultural and societal belief systems, are a form of programs that really condition how we perceive reality, ourselves, the world that we live in, and oftentimes they are um, they distort things in a negative way, so that we are blinded to bigger truths. So the first thing that I want to talk about, and this is really just for everybody to ponder some of this on your own. I'm just putting this out here. I'm going to ask some of them in forms of questions. But really, it's just for us all to really sit with and explore within ourselves why we use certain language that we do. What does it mean to us when we use certain language? And why and how is it that we turn positive things upside down? So, so let's go ahead and just start with something really basic, and I'll see if you can relate to this. So, have you ever wondered why, when we want to celebrate something positive, it's oftentimes something we do an action, we have a ritual, we can look at oftentimes birthdays, holidays, um, when we celebrate any kind of completions or closures, um, there's a way that we do behaviors in celebration to excess that actually end up making us not feel all that great, right? So we can use holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, any other holidays that people celebrate. And what's one of the things that we do? Well, we eat a lot, right? We eat a lot, and some people even feel like, okay, well, this is the time of year that I can celebrate by eating so much that I feel sick. Isn't that interesting? That we're celebrating to be sick. That's kind of interesting to me. Um, or we're going to celebrate an achievement, and we go out with the intention of celebrating something really positive, and maybe we get super, super drunk. And so we're actually sick, hungover, oops, hungover, feeling awful, um, So we've taken something positive and turned it into something that doesn't really feel very good. Um, and when we do this, we can start looking at the larger program that we have as humanity. It's a huge one for everybody. Our addiction and attachment to suffering, to pain. And so what we're doing is we're taking something that could be beautiful, joyful, freeing, and then it's harnessed into, not for everybody, but a painful or at least kind of uncomfortable um, excess experience. So, so why do we do that? And I guess the simple reason is that that's how we've been taught. That's how our families do things. That's how marketing tells us to do things, right? It's like celebrating with things that are destructive for us. We're going to go out and do trick or treating and get all of this candy. And then kids eat a bunch of candy and they feel sick. I mean, I'm not a big Halloween fan anyway, but or we could say Easter. Um, so it's just something that I think is important to look at as we move through the awakening process. There are ways that are very ingrained into our lifestyles, into our family rituals that bring about discomfort, dis-ease, and a level of pain and suffering that happens very unconsciously. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about is language. So, when I was growing up, or when I was a teenager in the 80s, the word for something that was really great was killer, right? Killer, like, oh yeah, that's killer. And I think now the words are, yeah, you really killed it, you really nailed it, you really slayed it. So I want you just to like feel those words, feel the frequency and the vibration of those words, and then just look at the meaning, right? The normal context. Killed it means something that, perhaps died violently. Slayed it. It's a violent action. You really nailed it. Can be kind of a violent action. And yet we're using these words to express something that is positive, to express something that we want to be feeling good about. And yet it's done with this violent undercurrent just simply to the words themselves. So this has a way of confusing the mental, the emotional bodies, and it conditions us to link pain and pleasure together. Does that make sense? That's just one level that we can look at. I mean, I'm sure that somebody might be really inspired to dig into this deeper and probably already has. I haven't really looked for information on this, but I know it must exist. But it's just been something that's been on my mind quite a bit. And the more that I have gone about my own healing journey and my own healing process, particularly as a woman, but not limited to that by any means, is the languaging that we use, once again, that has a violent connotation to it or an angry connotation to it, that to words that connect us to our sexuality. And the most popular word that we could come up with is fuck, right? So every time, not every time, but I know when I was younger, whenever I got angry, the word that would come out was fuck. Fuck you, um, whatever. So this is so commonplace, and yet it also connects us to an act of intimacy that ideally, in my personal opinion, would be and should be about connecting from a place of love. And yet, what we have is this energy around this word. And I think we can all attest to knowing that this word is also used during the sex act for a lot of people. And so, when we have an energy that is repeatedly said over and over and over, it develops its own frequency. It becomes the power of a word. And so the paramount power to the word fuck, in my best guesstimation, is usually anger and violence. And so then when we think about being with a partner in the sexual act, fucking, if we want to use that word. I don't use that word actually anymore. I'm using it now just to make points. And part of it is because I find the word really violent and violating. The energy of the word feels very violating. And particularly as a woman, we're taking that energy into our being. And as a man, we're entering into a very sacred connection with that energy that has, and I'm not saying that everybody feels it this way, but the collective consciousness around the energy of the word fuck has very dense, negating undertones of anger and violence. So I don't think that we can say that this is a mistake. Okay. I think that it's something that we have been conditioned and programmed once again into by a number of different sources to create an energetic distortion and a frequency distortion in the bodies, the emotions, and the psyches once again. We can say for we've got the word cunt, which once again is often used violently and derogatory. The same would go for dick or prick, right? And these are all more slang words, but they become made popular and then they grow because they are slang words. They are, swear words for the most part. And then we use them, particularly when we're younger, as an act of rebellion. And then it just becomes part of this language. Yeah, you're a fucking dick. Like, what is that? What is that really saying about the masculine and and the masculine genitalia of the penis, which should not, in my humble opinion, have the connotation of being something that once again is laden with the anger and derogatoriness, the same as cunt. So the list could go on for some of these, but I don't want to belabor this. I think that it's just important that as we move through these times of ascension, when we're really looking at connecting to our own divinity, when we're connecting to higher aspects of ourselves and coming to know ourselves beyond the third dimensional human paradigm, that our languaging also needs to go through a transformation. None of that language, in my opinion, inspires self love or self honor or self respect for myself or for anybody else. Just as, you know, when I overeat on a holiday, I'm aware now that when I'm doing it, that I am in the throes, I'm sort of hypnotized by a programming, right? That this is just what we do. This is how I celebrate. It's the same with, I think, drinking and then being somebody who's been sober for a very long time. I transferred that into coffee and caffeine. That was my way of celebrating, even though it really didn't feel good to me. So my encouragement and my suggestion is to begin to align ourselves with the true essence of, if we're celebrating something that brings life, how do we celebrate? By practicing and behaving in ways that bring about more life, that create more life force. If we're celebrating joyfully, how do we actually increase the joy rather than behaviors and choices that can have a tendency to lead us to not feel very joyful and to oftentimes become, to whatever degree, right? Small degrees or larger degrees, more unconscious and less present to the moment, to ourselves, to receptivity of wonderful things happening in our lives, and so on and so forth. I think that you get the gist. And listen when you use certain words. Listen to how you're feeling when you use them, and then check in with yourself. Is this really the same feeling that you want to be enmeshing into other things that maybe you want to be experiencing love and positivity and vulnerability and intimacy? And how does anger, right, and hate and derogatory energies, thought forms, vocalizations, right? Because the voice is very powerful, the words are very powerful. How does all that fit together, and how does it really feel in the system? The system being your sacred being, your sacred technology, your own psyche and emotional realm. And unfortunately, we become so desensitized to all of this, and yet it's still working like unseen patterns on the deeper layers of our being. And it takes us becoming really conscious of them to then begin to make different choices and access deeper understandings for ourselves personally. So that's all I want to say. So thank you very much, and I hope that this gives you some stuff to ponder on, some things to chew on. Oh yeah, I know. My husband and I were talking the other day too about things like um, kill two birds with one stone, right? It's like, well, that should be something positive, and yet it's very violent. It's causing harm. And so he had come up with, oh no, oh, there's more than one way to there's more than one way to chop a coconut. I think that's it. I hope I didn't mess it up, but something similar to that, right? So, so how do we consciously, creatively rephrase some of these slogans that have become so normal to us that we just throw them out there, and the energy is also being thrown out there. Okay, I went over. So I just thought about that. So I wanted to put that in there as well, because I thought that that I liked the new rendition of it. So, all right, everyone, you can always check out my website at lotuslindley.net, Art of Sacred Embodiment, or connect with me on Facebook. All right, thank you so much. Take care. Bye bye.